wanted to give y'all a quick review about Olivia Rodrigo's Driving Home to You, a sour film on Disney Plus. I hope I captured everything. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleni. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So I've had this documentary special on my radar for a while now, and I was excited to check it out. Let me jump right into it. Is Driving Home to You worth watching? Yes, if you are a fan of Olivia Rodrigo and or her first album called Sour. Mostly if you're like a strong fan of it. If you're a super casual fan, like I kind of was, to be honest, I was expecting more vlog-ish or more of a traditional documentary, and it's definitely more artistic and curated, sticking to a specific aesthetic. So if you really like the modern hipster aesthetic, so like things shot on film and being in coffee shops and bucket hats, then you'll like this. I think the vibe, it's very cohesive in how it looks. It's mostly shot on film, and I'm assuming the parts that weren't shot on film were like made to look like they were. So it's very like Instagram filter, Gen Z aesthetic, very like kind of earth tones compared to her album, which when you look at her album cover, it's more colorful and lilac, and she has like the stickers. So it's not that aesthetic at all. It's definitely more elevated, more like the natural earth tones aesthetic. The documentary term is loose on this. There is not very much raw footage documenting her rise to fame. It's almost like little music videos as well, because the documentary contains all of the songs from Sour, and Olivia rearranged some of them, and it's very produced. So it's not as much documentary as it is like visual album with behind the scenes of each song segments, Olivia explaining it, plus some studio sessions of recording Sour. So yeah, I think I had different expectations, and I was a little bit disappointed because it wasn't what I was expecting, but at the same time it's an enjoyable and very beautifully done kind of visual doc album. Everything's a hybrid nowadays. Let me elaborate more about Driving Home to You. So this is a movie. It's on the shorter side. I think it's like an hour, 17 minutes. It's framed as her taking a road trip from Salt Lake City, where she's from, to Los Angeles, kind of for the last time, because she wrote most of her Sour album between the two cities. On every promo that I saw, it was framed as this road trip idea, and that it is documenting her rise to fame. For me, I was expecting more of like a genuine, like her reacting to when her songs were on the radio, which there is a video about that, but that she posted on social media, I think. But more moments of like literally behind the scenes of her getting nominated for awards, getting negative press or positive press, or doing interviews. Like I expected more of a typical, like they're just following an artist around for a year and making a documentary out of. And honestly, that's why I was excited about it, because I was like, oh my god, Olivia Rodrigo skyrocketed to mainstream fame literally overnight in 2021. Started out 2021 as almost a nobody, not quite, because she was on a Disney Plus show, which I watched as well. But she started out pretty unknown in the music industry and ended up like nominated for Grammys and every award ever, and being Billboard Woman of the Year and a bunch of huge accolades within this year. And that's why I was like, oh my god, they documented it. They're gonna show us what such sudden fame looks like. The documentary was not that at all. It was definitely curated to be this all on brand aesthetic. Even the road trip scenes, literally it felt like the whole time she was going to like convenience stores and road tripping like in her Jeep or whatever. You never see another person or another car on these road trip segments, and I'm just like, it's all very staged. And it's like she did not actually go on a road trip for this movie, and I was promised a road trip. I think that's why I was a little disappointed, but if you are a fan of Olivia Rodrigo and this album, then you're gonna love this movie. Mostly my thoughts watching it were like, dang, I wish I had this movie for insert album I love here. It's just awesome because you get segments explaining each song, and then you get a new cool almost music video / live looking rendition of the song, and then another road trip segment. You also see Olivia in the studio with her co-writer Dan, which I'm glad they had the foresight to record a lot of these moments in the studio. Those were the most interesting to me because they felt the closest to what I wanted, of like the real thoughts and the real things that happened behind the scenes of Olivia Rodrigo's fame. So it's kind of like part concert, part documentary, which I think is more common nowadays, and especially Disney Plus. I looked on the Pophead subreddit to see what the reaction was to this movie because I wasn't sure, not being like a huge Olivia Rodrigo fan myself, but the response on the subreddit was actually super positive. So my hunch was right that if you're like a stan of Olivia Rodrigo, you would love this. And a few people on that post commented that Disney Plus is kind of leading the charge on making these interesting music related new kind of music long form content and visual content compared to the other streaming platforms. Disney Plus had that Beatles documentary thing that was a big thing. That's a little different, but they have Beyonce's Black is King. They have Taylor Swift did one for Folklore on Disney Plus, which I didn't know until it was suggested after I watched Driving Home to You. It looks like Disney Plus is kind of a leader in this, though Netflix does have a few. I know they have quite a bit of music documentary adjacent content, but on Netflix it feels more, the ones I've seen are more what I expected of just following the stars and more standard documentaries, and Disney Plus seems to be more like artistic and like whatever the artist envisions. I watched an interview with Olivia Rodrigo and she said that it's meant to be for anyone that can't make it onto her tour. Olivia's about to go on a world tour for her Sour album. She's kind of playing in smaller venues compared to her fame level. And I think it is because it's her first album. She doesn't have that many songs, and it's like appropriate for the length of her career rather than her fame level, instead of like going straight to arenas. I remember it was a big controversy because everyone was trying to get tickets and so few people were able to get tickets. So in an interview I watched, Olivia said that this film is meant to be for those people that weren't able to make it or get tickets to her show, and it's teasing a bit of a concert experience for everybody rather than just for people with tickets to the concert. So I think that's interesting and it's a good idea. It also, to me, kind of felt like a bookend to Sour as a pop era, even though she is going on the tour. This felt kind of like a reflection on the whole journey of Sour, as well as some sort of concert experience for anyone that can't go to an actual concert. Let me get into my opinions about Driving Home to You. I know this video is a shorter one, so I've been saying a lot of my opinions already, but just some things that stood out to me. Although I'm not like the biggest Olivia Rodrigo stan, it was still cute to see such a like precise execution of Gen Z's aesthetic. Like, I see how this is a blueprint for Gen Z aesthetics to like thrive off of. I don't know, like I'm thinking like back in my day when a bunch of stuff was reblogged on Tumblr, Driving Home to You scenes are the types of things that would get not reblogged on Tumblr now, but posted on TikTok. I don't know, duetted on TikTok. Influence. I feel like this is a good piece of media that depicts Gen Z's aesthetic and will probably influence kids for their own life aesthetics. I just love how trends come and go and how you can look at certain pieces of media and know exactly what year they were filmed in, and I feel like this is one of those types that it's like we'll know what era of trends this flourished out of. I think my favorite of the songs, which was early in the movie, was Driver's License, because it was her hit single that broke her out into the mainstream, and the way they did the performance on this was they had this whole montage of her performing it at so many different places, like all the late night shows and SNL and stages. That was what I was wanting for the whole movie, like kind of the highlight reel. That segment gave me the most of like, oh my god, I love seeing the growth of the fame, and it's crazy. And Driver's License was my favorite. Also, Good For You was a standout, not only because it's my favorite song on the album, so I was like waiting for it the whole time. She totally rearranged it to be with an orchestra, and it was just so interesting because it was like new and different, and it matched the vibe of the documentary so much more than the original Good For You. I do think these punk songs that she had 2 of these punk songs, Brutal and Good For You, I don't feel like those are very her, because everything she writes is more like on the sad side. Sometimes I do feel like Brutal and Good For You don't fit into the album super well, and honestly I would prefer an album based around those 2 tracks rather than actual Sour album. So all that being said, it feels like in the movie they made Good For You fit better with the other songs. This orchestral rendition was like softer and more romantic and more aesthetic, and it was filmed beautifully. All of the musical numbers were filmed beautifully. Lots of drone footage and just beautiful like sets that were very like nature or on the beach or in the cliffs. I mean, the nature in the West United States is very beautiful in that way. Another standout part of the movie for me was when we got to hear from Olivia directly. They had these interviews of her where she was on a hotel bed, and it was very like casual chic. Very like the photo dump trend, you know, that's so big with teens these days. The curated casual Instagram thing that I've seen TikToks about on my FYP. It's interesting to me how in this movie they really curated being casual and real. I think it just goes to show that like the whole casual Instagram trend and everything, it's still just as curated as Instagram before. It's not any less put together to convey lack of effort. But anyways, I still like to hear from Olivia in those interviews. That was the most new part of this to me. I didn't know much about what went into each song, and she is very invested in her songwriting, so she explains it really well, and like it's very well articulated. That's the word I was missing. Articulated. She's very well articulated about each song, and I just wanted more of that. I just wanted more of like her actual like day in her life kind of thing. And she's kind of a mysterious pop star. I think for me, I'm just so used to the social media access to celebrities, and I appreciate those celebrities that are good at social media and show just enough of their lives to be relatable and compelling in that way. And that's something I'm missing from Olivia. Also, I'm like in my late 20s, so I don't necessarily relate to the themes of her music too much. I just feel like I don't know her, and I feel like she keeps herself mysterious, and I think she has to at the level she's at. Like, I don't blame her. I think Billie Eilish is in a similar boat. But even Billie Eilish, I feel like she shared a lot on social media that make her relatable. Like, I remember when she was talking about being a former stan of Justin Bieber and things like that, where it's like, that's relatable. That's what I'm talking about. And for Olivia, everything she puts out is so curated that I'm like, who are you behind all of this? Who are you? Obviously, it's not my place to demand that, and more power to her for not showing that. But I just, at the same time, probably won't stan her until either her art really resonates with me or she becomes more relatable. Because that's the thing about celebrities like Billie Eilish or whoever. I don't particularly like their music or their art, but I like them as a person. And for Olivia, it's like, I like her art, alright. I jam to the singles or whatever, but I don't have any other levels with her. I think Cardi B is like a good example of someone using social media at a super famous level and being super relatable. But that's just who she is. Like, she is that girl. You have to toe that balance of like, or you don't have to, but it probably helps you to toe that balance of like relatable and accessible and like showing real parts of your life and then showing your curated and really thought out art. For me, I like seeing a balance, but some artists just want to put out the curated good art, and that's fine. It's just like, if that art doesn't speak to people, then you have nothing else to fall on. But like, Olivia stuff does speak to people. I'm not talking about Olivia specifically. Like, her art really speaks, I think, to Gen Z and people that just find her songs relatable. So I don't mean her. I think her art is very polished and well done. It's more of a personal thing of like, I kind of want to know more of her. I'm just so fascinated by fame that I'm like, I just want to see someone rise to fame, and I want to see the behind the scenes and how they reacted to stupid stuff about the entertainment industry. Oh my god, there was this one song, it was Traitor. I don't know that song that well, but Traitor, the way she did it on the movie was she did all of the instruments making loops. It's musician shit that I don't understand, but it was very impressive from what I know about music. She like played the piano chords and then looped it, and then did percussion and looped it, and then did guitar and looped it, and then started singing and all that. That was cool. That was impressive and really showed her musical chops. And finally, one of the moments that is the most talked about on social media that I've seen was towards the end of the movie, where she wrote the song Brutal, which is the opening song to the album. It's very iconic, and it's the other punk song on the album. It was actually 5 days before her final track list was due to her label, I guess. And her and Dan were trying to figure out what the final song was going to be because she wanted something new to add to the track list. She was looking through her like voice memos and notes and couldn't really land on anything. And then finally Dan started playing like the Brutal instrumental like on the guitar, and she started kind of like singing and finding the melody. They wrote it in a day. And that's one of the coolest songs on the album. It's one of the most like specific and teen songs, like very teen angst, feeling insecure and inadequate and being upset about it, feeling not good enough, being unable to parallel park, which if I had heard that at 15, I would have been like, this girl is speaking right to my heart, because I struggled with parallel parking. But who doesn't? That was an impressive moment for her because she wrote it, and it was both of them in collaboration, but she wrote it in a day and put it on the album, and ultimately put her foot down about wanting it to be the opening song, because they never expected when they wrote it that this song would be the first song on the album. That's a big slot to fill. This was the one part she mentioned fame, and I was like, yes, fame, something. Not the one time. She mentions it here and there and talking about social media and how she feels insecure. But anyway, there's this one part where she talked about the line, "Who am I if not exploited?" in Brutal, and how that came from her feelings after becoming overnight famous from Driver's License. Brutal is a lot more of a reflection on her fame, like since it was so far along in the album process. I don't know why I had the impression that a lot of Sour was created along with Driver's License. I thought they were all kind of in a group and she already kind of had them and just polished them up. But no, she like put out Driver's License as like, this is my single, and then was like, shit, I have to make an album now because everyone's expecting that. The album was created as she was being catapulted into the mainstream, and I like that Brutal is the closest reflection of that. Oh, by the way, in this whole movie, they had to censor any fucks in the song. Disney said, "No ma'am, you will not be cussing on this platform." And Olivia Rodrigo said, "I cuss a little." And Disney was like, "What's your favorite cuss word?" And she was like, "Probably fuck." And Disney bleeped it. I'm just kidding. That was the Miranda Cosgrove TikTok sound. You caught me.
I actually do cuss a little.
Do you?
Also,
What's your favorite curse word?
Probably fuck.
No, yeah, they had to censor all the fucks in the songs. When Sour first came out and we were throwing all the fucks around, I was like, dang, Disney really is loosening the reins on their Disney stars. They definitely have, like, Miley Cyrus. I saw a tweet recently that was like, Miley Cyrus was really the Katniss Everdeen of Disney. That is the right take. But for Driving Home to You, Disney said, no ma'am. Last thing I'll comment on this is that I really appreciated all of these musical numbers, which a lot of the times had other musicians present. It was mostly, if not all, women musicians that were featured in these musical segments of this. So it was really cool and really badass, and it was giving very like Freaky Friday Pink Slip energy. I think that vibe is an inspiration for Olivia Rodrigo in general, because there's been a huge resurgence of that song and that group of girls being so iconic for this random ass Disney movie remake of Freaky Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis. Lots of women musicians in this and looking very badass and playing really badass. I don't really know because I don't fucking know music, but they sounded great and looked great doing it. So those are my thoughts on Driving Home to You. I know it's kind of like a general review, nothing too deep on this one. I think her stans would have a lot more to read into it, but I did enjoy it. I just was a little thrown off by what I expected versus what I got. But ultimately, it's a great piece of art, and it's a beautiful tribute and reflection on this crazy journey of her first project. It's going to be exciting to see what she continues to do. I mean, she's just gonna keep going up from here. Let me know what you thought of Driving Home to You, or just the Sour album and era in general. I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. You can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!